What's up, creative athletes? It is Chris David Garcia with Ross Yoshida, and we are with Dan Brown, the creative services manager with the Cincinnati Bengals. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Ross, what's going on?
Man, first day at Connect, I'm hyped.
Dan, how you feeling?
I'm glad to be here. Glad to be back. It's been a couple of years. I'm excited.
Well,
Awesome.
we're going to find out a little bit. We're going to dive into some questions, a little bit about what inspires you, what challenges you. We're going to see if maybe we can get some tears. Maybe you can get, deep and personal.
Oh man, you might get me.
To talk about the journey, but also just, how you got here today. I mean, honestly, we're getting to know Dan as well. We've connected for years, but, that's kind of what this podcast is about is, connecting, making relationships, and just finding out more about your journey. But we're gonna get to some technical questions too. That's definitely feel free to give your opinion and give the answer the hard questions however you like, because I think at the end of the day that's what listeners really want to hear. They want to hear how you do things, how what you had to do to get where you're at. And as you can see, we are recording here in Detroit, Ford Field, home of the Detroit Lions, during MLC Connect 2024. A little bit of a tongue twister because we've been meeting a lot of people all day. I'm sure you've had a chance to meet a ton of folks. But this is the type of content and the type of stuff, the type of conversations you'll have when you're here. If you haven't gotten here, get here. It's just one of those things where the more relationships you have, the further you can go in your career and just, broaden your horizons when it comes to skill sets and learning what other folks do. I mean, and this is just like one conversation of so many. But with that being said, let's just get into it. And let's just jump into the podcast if that works for you.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's just start off with something simple, man, because I mean, you're currently with the Bengals right now, and you've been there since 2021. But you also were with Mississippi State Bulldogs, director of creative strategy there, if I'm correct.
Yeah, a couple title changes, but that's where we ended.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you too much, but has some history of Syracuse with the Gators, and just honestly, we were even talking about where you're from. So let's just start there if that's cool with you. I mean, we'll get through a little bit about you and then just get into some of the questions.
Yeah. So my journey's been kind of a hodgepodge, but I've been fortunate to end up at some pretty big places.
Yeah.
That being Syracuse, University of Florida, and Mississippi State, and I grew up in Rochester, New York. So I was come from a small town, graduation class of about 115. So the expectations there are very low. I like to think that I'm a star that came out of that small town.
Man.
There's always one.
Yeah, you go back, and the people you went to school with, some are still there, and I that's just one of my greatest things is getting out. Not that it was bad, but more so this shows the success that I've been able to obtain. It's kind of a strange story how I got my first opportunity with Syracuse. I don't use Twitter very often, and one day I was doing autograph graphics for a super fan for Syracuse. He found me on Facebook, and I started doing these graphics for him. And then I was like, hey, what if I got in on the inside? And I had Twitter. I had about 2 or 3 tweets at that point. Had it for about a year.
Dang.
Twitter was still taking off. This was 2012, 2013. So very early in the Twitter stages. And I tweeted a graphic of Ryan Nassib to a coach on the football team, and instantly called me in. I had a meeting, and at that point in my career, I had no experience, nothing to have, no good backing.
Dang.
To have any credential to be there. I just love Syracuse. I'm 6'4". I always pictured myself going there to play basketball. Unfortunately, I ended up being there taking pictures and being on the court anyways in a different fashion. But they let me come in, gave me the opportunity to do some graphics for them, and I literally was like, hey, just throw me a T-shirt, throw me shoes.
Yeah.
I was driving an hour and a half, paying tolls, paying my own gas just to get there.
Wow.
I knew that taking a big step like that and taking advantage of the opportunity would pay off in the end. And that's kind of how I've been my whole life, is just take things as they are and make the best of it. And how many other opportunities would I get to step into like the college world again? So I kind of gave myself to them in retrospect to get experience in return, and paid off. I spent a couple years there waiting for something more concrete. Opportunity with the Florida Gators came up, and my dad actually had told me. My dad and I are two separate people. I'm on the creative side. He's more technical. I didn't get any of my creative from him or my mother or my height. Still related though. I
might want to look into that.
I promise. So he actually, I was gonna make $8 an hour to go work for the Florida Gators.
Wow.
As a graphic design assistant, and I looked at it as this is the Florida Gators, like huge SEC school, tons of success. I'm going to go there, give my time. I don't care what I'm making. It's going to open up some doors for me.
Yeah.
So
I love
it was that, either focus on my career and make little money, or push carts for $12 an hour at the grocery store,
Dude,
That's not going to get me anything long term.
says a lot about your drive, man, for sure.
Yeah. And then after a year there, took on the creative strategy job at or director of creative strategy for Mississippi State, and then spent 5 years there in Starkville. If anyone's been to Starkville, it's a wild town and weird things happen there.
I've never been there, but I've heard about it.
If you haven't, I recommend it. Things get weird. One of my craziest
So vague, but it's so like spot on.
Yeah, one of my craziest experiences was my interview there. I was actually on vacation in Florida. I got an email from them, and they're like, "Hey, we're interested in you. How soon can you come here for an interview?" So no prior phone calls, no. I don't even think video chat was a thing at that point. But called the director of marketing, and she was like, "Hey, come on down. We'll fly you in." I was I'm in Florida. Can I finish my vacation? And they're like, "Would you want to fly here from Florida and just interview?" So I had nothing prepared for this interview.
Wow.
I show up in a bright blue Adidas polo, some shorts that I probably wore 2 days prior.
Wow.
And I get
Not
off the
exactly
plane.
Mississippi State colors.
Yeah, no. I saw the Adidas and I was like, this might just work.
You sound like the guy that I'd be like, just send him home, dude. We don't.
Yeah.
Like,
But funny as it is, they took me in open hands. I got off the plane. They were in super regionals, so it was chaos. I sat in a circle with 20 people. They all kind of asked a question as they went around, and then the game started. Within an hour, the power went out in the stadium.
What?
So then the director of marketing took me into the outfield, and Mississippi State's known for their baseball stadium and their left field lounge.
what?
Went out there, people just cooking out, having drinks. I go out there, and
This is still your interview?
this is my interview. Yeah, just complete chaos. But from the get-go, it made sense. And then with the 5 years, it made total sense that that's how it should have gone down. It just felt right.
So what happened then?
So I'm in the outfield, and just fans are like, "Hey, try this steak, try this sausage, try this boudin." I'm like the
Man.
Grinch when they're feeding him fudge. They're like, "Try mine, try mine, try mine," and throwing me beers. And I'm just like, I'm interviewing. Like, do I
Bro,
take this? Do I
That
just
was
this?
the interview, bro.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
testing you.
One guy was even like, "You're gonna meet your wife here," and I'm like, these guys are just planning out my future, like within the hour. So we get out of there. We get out of the chaos.
And
in
you
the
still haven't
outfield.
gotten offered the job though, right?
No,
technically.
and I don't think I had a legitimate, authentic, professional question asked to me at this point. Try my beer was the official interview question.
Sounds on point for the SEC.
Yeah. And the night ended. I was there within 24 hours. And I had gone outfield eating meats, drinking beers. And then we were up till 3 a.m. at the lady who hired me's house, eating pizza that she had kept in her freezer for weeks.
Dude.
She brought coaches, she brought staff members. Everyone was over at her house trying to reel me in and hire me.
Oh my gosh,
And
you were like being recruited for the football
Yeah,
team.
it was. I wish every interview was like this, because it was one heck of an experience.
Wow.
Yeah, woke up at 6, toured the stadium, flew home, got the offer, and I was like, I gotta go.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
I've never.
Now, did you
heard
meet your wife there though?
No, so I recently married. We just came up on our first month. I just got married. in Hawaii.
Congratulations.
Dang.
Yeah, just got married in
Congrats, dude.
Hawaii. It's funny that I was supposed to meet my wife in Mississippi. I ended up meeting her in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And had a kid too. I got a 2-year-old. So
That's sick.
life came to fruition in Cincinnati. And I mean, just shows that like things happen for a reason. NFL was the next big opportunity, and then now I'm here and trying to build a brand and tell a story. So
Yeah, and that was kind of a question too, like, like you mentioned, starting or not starting, but being at Cincinnati, and it's just interesting here, right? Because there's so many NFL, there's a lot of MLB. But I was just curious, like, what was it about this year, and how did you end up here on this particular? Because I know every year is like a challenge.
yeah, so just I mean, having the opportunity kind of this year made the most sense.
Yeah,
We as much as we want to be here every year, sometimes the budget's not there. Sometimes we got things to take care of at work.
of course, yeah,
So years past, I mean, it hasn't been the norm to go to conferences as a graphic design team. We are still a very fresh team within 6 years.
yeah.
Our senior designer, Mina Creamer, she started as a seasonal back in 2019.
Dang, that's not
Before
that
that,
long
there was
ago.
no creatives on the staff.
Oh my God,
I'm the first
isn't
person to be
that
hired
wild,
as
dude?
creative services
Dang.
manager.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so
I
It's cool,
mean,
but it's
in this
not.
era, to not have a creative staff and you're a professional, like
yeah,
a
and
big
it's
time professional sports team, is kind
That's
of crazy.
yeah, and it's I feel like everywhere I've been, it's been a small team. Mississippi State, I was a creative director, but I had nobody to direct.
But
dude,
you
this
directed the
Yeah,
creative, so
yeah,
dude,
and
this
I
is
mean, I
like
was
just
honestly 16 teams by myself.
yeah, man. This is taking a lot of twists and turns. But dude, but I can relate though, man. I definitely understand it. Like I could just imagine the fights that you're fighting. It's like, hey, listen, if we want to do that, it's gonna, we need more manpower. We need to bring someone in. We need to like build this right. It sounds like you guys are doing that.
Yeah, no, I say it all the time. I'm like, we make two people look like 10.
That's awesome,
And
dude.
part of that's just
That says a lot.
making things, finding the most efficient way to do them.
yeah.
Um, I Some of the best advice I ever got, and it was at Florida, was make this for the let's dumbest person in the room. Excuse the choice of
Yeah, no,
word there, but
I use
that's how
that
it was
phrase all
told
the
me.
time.
Build it for the dumbest person in the room, and that's just so that anybody can handle it and take care of it if you're out of the scene. And it's the most efficient way.
That's smart.
You do fall into templates that way, which is not the ideal direction, but to have that foundation where you can fall back on, where you just plug and play, I mean, that helps a lot. But
Yeah, and
So,
it,
so
go ahead.
listen, man. I know like some people that I know that work in the NFL, as compared to baseball where I work, they say like, okay, we only have 17 games in the season, but that means we have 17 like opening days, 17 huge events. So can you take us through like a typical game day for you and your staff?
yeah, so a lot of the prep is obviously during the week. When we go through the awards, we go through game posters. A lot of stuff is partnered in the NFL, so we got to follow suit with what our partners want and what kind of meets in the middle with them. But
That's part of it.
yeah, game day for the Bengals is a lot of all hands on deck. We all serve a purpose on game day. Our senior designers out taking pictures. I'm up in the press box managing, our social graphics, editing photos. We have an assistant who's, cutting clips on Twitter and editing photos as well. So, I mean, we typical reports 4 hours in advance, and it's just, I mean, working a game day, you're there 4 hours early and it's kind of got that eerie feel,
And
and
you're there
then you
four
just
hours after.
yeah, and then you're there way after, way longer than you need to be. You might as well sleep at your desk. But yeah, no, it's all hands on deck, and very collaborative. The Teams channel, Slack, just communicating with everybody. But most of
Communication is
our
key.
NFL, most of the work's done throughout the week. I mean, and then it's basically opens up the room for any kind of free creative on game day, because you want to capitalize on those big moments.
Right.
I'm just kind of curious. Did like that weekly prep, like were you trained like that, or you kind of
Just adapt to it.
I tell
Yeah,
you why I asked because I found that like training as a creative is not a high thing. Like like some roles, it's like you can't even start until you get trained, right? And you said you were the first creative services manager, which means no one's going to train you on, there's no previous role.
Yeah.
That's like a really
Right.
unique thing, man. It sounds like you really cut your teeth in NCAA, and then it sounds like you pieced it together along the way. And I mean, I think a lot of us had to do that. I know I did. I always, one of my biggest regrets, I wouldn't say biggest, but one of them is just, I didn't have someone that I was replacing. So it was very difficult, to like, hey, well, so and so taught me and this is how I did it. It would be like I'd fail, and then be like, okay, I won't do that again.
Yeah, and I think that makes us better at the end of the day. It's a challenge, and you're forced to adapt. You're forced to figure it out.
Yeah,
When I'm hiring people, that's one of the biggest attributes is I try to look as like someone that can figure things out.
that's so good.
It was
Solve
one of our
problems.
phrases at Mississippi State, FIL, is figure it out,
That's good.
explore. Yeah, Mississippi State taught me a lot, and like you said, you grinding the teeth through college level. Like I
Yeah,
learned so much.
you paid your dues, man. I mean,
Right.
that's
You can handle 32 sports. You can handle one sport.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, that was one of the big reasons to go to the NFL is like limit the 16 different teams and different coaches and focus on one, but it's the same amount of work. I mean, if not more.
yeah,
But yeah, college. I mean, that's one of my biggest things I want to tell people is like, go work college, work as many jobs as you can. Honestly, it's like going to shop at the grocery store and they have all the samples out. Try all the samples. Like, go to different places, gain different experiences, learn different lessons, different structures. Go into a place where you have to adapt to, game day week
Love
that they've
that.
never done before. So, I mean, I recommend that to everybody. Like, jump around a little bit. Don't and don't go work for your favorite team.
yeah.
Oh, too
'Cause
late.
you learn the yeah,
I agree with that, though. I agree with that.
especially at the beginning because you're gonna go through all the challenges and troubles and you're gonna blame it on the place. But it's really just not learning as much as you know yet. So yeah, bounce around and adapt. Learn as much as you can.
Yeah,
That's great advice for someone looking to break into the sports industry. Like, I could tell by your resume that, I guess, would it be fair to say you were kind of focused on working in sports? I mean, just judging from, you started at Syracuse, went to the Gators, working for the Bengals now. But
well,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, sports is where you want to be, right? As a male.
okay,
Yeah, no, that's
okay,
it. As tough as that is to say and feel good about saying that, I've just been an athlete my whole life, and to be able to continue
it's
that
natural.
without, yeah, like I was mentioning earlier that I always dreamed about being a basketball player and going to Syracuse to play basketball, and in reality, I was on the court taking pictures, doing it in a different way,
yeah,
and just being able to continue that, and I don't know, I mean, I would suggest the sports route. It's just more exciting. You get to look forward to the same things that the players get to look forward to when the team's going to the Super Bowl. Like they're
Yeah,
performing in a different way than you're performing, but collaboratively you're both going to that Super Bowl and being competitive. So yeah, this sports route, I'm glad I'm in it because in a way I still feel like an athlete. Like you
yeah.
said,
I
creative
love that.
athlete.
It's true.
Yeah.
100%, man. 100%. And like I could tell you're using those attributes as an athlete to like, get an advantage, right? Like, you know what? Let's template it so we can do it faster and focus on big stuff. Let's you know, um, make a case to get another person. Like let's be bigger, better, right? Like it's almost um that's definitely the mantra here, man. Because I mean, I think it's fair to say, dude, like almost every creative team in pro sports is understaffed. Like pretty fair, which is not really fair because this is how high of value I put on creative. And again, I'll say this numerous times. I'm biased, right? But this is the way I think. I'm literally taking myself outside of the creative space. When an initiative comes down from like the owner, the owner of the team, not the ownership group, like the owner,
Yep.
that person, what I've seen, usually goes straight to the CMO or the VP of marketing and says, this is a new initiative. I need to get the message out. I want it to look amazing. I want to get people excited, and we're pumping millions into this program. And where does that person go? Straight to the creative team. They won't even, that's like the first team they go to and say, we need to get this off the ground. If you think about it, it's essential
Yeah.
to that, and it's like that's like two steps away from the owner, like that's how that should tell you like how important creative is to the business in my mind because I've seen that happen so many times. I'm like, what, legal doesn't know about this yet? They're like, no, we haven't talked to legal yet. I'm like, what about accounting? What about HR? They're like, no, no one knows, right? I'm like, literally, this is like, emergency situation. You bringing me in, like, okay, let's get to work, but let's cook. But at the same time, I'm like, that has to be reciprocated. You have to understand, like, invest in me a little more and look what we could do. Anyway, I'm pretty passionate about it, but I've seen that happen so many times. How's the experience been with you? And I know it's different with every organization, but specifically in your current role, managing the creative intake and output. Like, how do you prioritize, requests? Do you have a system, or what do you do personally?
Yeah. So, um, we get direct requests from the owners. Sometimes we get direct requests from we wear. So just Mina and I mean, we literally wear so many hats. I mean, it could be considered a circus act with the amount we wear. A positive one, a good one. It's understanding, that we are a service to everybody. Um, Most designers, and one of the biggest thing getting over as a designer is like it's not about me, and becoming more selfless. And that goes a long way once you understand that. Once you get over that hill and you've kind of obtained that mental space, like
Yeah.
be selfless. Let's provide them with what they need, and every department has a different goal and a different objective as to what their content is supposed to do for them. What's this thumbnail gonna do? How does it perform the best? How does the social graphic gonna perform the best? So, um, we have our request forms, and as you know, like sports get crazy, and some people just pop around the corner and ask for something.
Yeah.
People don't
Literally.
give you enough detail. This needs to be done yesterday, or hey, I forgot a month ago that I was supposed to do this. We need it now. So uh, there's never gonna be like the perfect way to kind of execute things. We have the infrastructure in place to request 72 hours in advance, and
Okay.
hey, this might not get
Wow,
done,
that's
but
good, dude.
yeah, but at the same time, I mean,
That's
you're
great.
gonna tell the owners no, or you're gonna
Right.
tell ticketing that you can't give them a graphic when they got to sell tickets to the game. Like, it's a struggle with a small team, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's a challenge that's gonna make us way better. Um, if I leave, if Mina leaves, we will be super efficient graphic designers, and we'll have a better understanding of priority, what needs to be creative versus what can be simplistic, lifeline on graphics, um, all those kind of go into play. And honestly, like as much as a small team hurts, it also benefits you personally as a designer.
I feel like that's like your answer there just spoke to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I can tell just from your answer, you're like a really humble designer. But I do want to ask you a question about and get into your creative chops. Okay, so a couple years ago, you led this very well done game day campaign that was inspired by album covers, and I thought
Yep.
that was so clever. So, like, what inspired that, and how did you keep it fresh from week to week?
Yeah, so that is one of our favorites. And when I'm thinking of projects, I try to think long term. I'll get into another example later, but as far as this project goes, it was everybody does game posters, right? And it's a
Right.
graphic that, super creative, promotes the game. How do we take that idea and elevate it? And I've always been the type of person like I'm not gonna do what everyone does. I want people to do what we're doing. And
Love that.
and then going into the game posters, like everybody does it. So like, how can we stand out? It's like seeing the same product over and over again. How do we make our product a little different? And going into that was, we of course you need a thematic. You need that foundation that is going to carry the series throughout the whole thing. That being the album cover, the packaging, the physical shape of it, and then now we need to create a story behind it. And what do most people have in common? Then they really realize it's music. People work out to music. There's music in therapy. There's music in just like playing sports
Is
at an
yeah,
event.
huge part of the
Yeah.
culture.
So it just like crosses all walks of life. And how can we take that so that someone that doesn't necessarily like football can relate to the music aspect of it? So
Uh-huh.
creating the
So
albums
good.
was to carry this story of the Bengals finding our sound. So we had just lost the Super Bowl, and yeah, I mean it's a downer for most athletes, and you need that pick me up again, and that's that sound, that's that success being the sound, finding the sound. So this series was an album series about finding the sound, and throughout the year we would be able to take this foundation, that album thematic, and create the artwork that is typically in your game day posters to promote the game, but with an album style, with some kind of Easter eggs that tie into music, so we can touch the music fans,
Yeah.
the Bengals fans, football fans in general. And then the idea was, if this project works out by the end of the year, let's print these suckers out and work with video to bring this to life.
That next level.
So we ended up making a video. It's offline right now due to music rights, but we ended up working with a local studio shop or record shop and printed out all the artwork on actual, vinyl covers, placed them in the store, and then built our story, highlighting back through the year, and then towards the end of the video, everything goes silent, and there's just this humming of what would be our playoff album, one that we hadn't created yet. And the consumer stops what he's doing, peeks around the corner. He's trying to find this sound that he keeps hearing. It's like that secret item in the closet in the back of the store. Like, hey, come back here, check this out. Like, you're gonna love this thing. So that was the inspiration for that idea. And then he finds in this bundle of old albums, the junk albums that sell for $1, he finds this playoff album that was misplaced, pulls it up. We go into our playoff. So that was our video to go into our playoff push. If we had lost in the AFC Championship within the last couple of seconds to the Chiefs, this thing would have been a series that we sold with sounds of the game on each of the album that we designed for up until the Super Bowl. Bengals finding their sound.
So this was a big picture campaign.
Yeah,
from the
yeah, and
beginning.
I try to always go that route because things should be bigger than just in the moment. Something long term. Rule the jungle. That was a campaign I created when I started with the Bengals, and the idea going into that was, how can we make this long term as well? And that was rule the jungle for regular season games, rule the playoffs once we got into the playoffs, rule the AFC for the AFC Championship game, and then rule it all if we won the Super Bowl.
You know what? That wasn't even a part of our questions, but I had actually consciously thought of that. I'm like, wow, the Bengals are really leading into this jungle theme.
Yeah.
So like me being in LA, I noticed that.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that was the goal. We've called the stadium the jungle for the longest time, and
That's so good, man.
haven't really extracted what that means. I haven't
Right.
dove into it. So I watched every jungle movie I could think of, Mowgli, Jungle Book, before I...
That's dedication right there.
as I was... And I love that stuff. Like, Disney's one of my favorites. So I dove into that stuff before I took the job, and then they're like, hey, we need a new campaign. Like, Seize the Day is over. And I'm like, all right. Took a road trip down, I think it was in Nashville, and just brainstormed on the road, and then hit up my buddy who's in charge of game presentation, and he's like, hey, I got this bit that I'm creating for pregame ritual, and it was Ruler of the Jungle, and he's like, we have the throne from the uniform release from 2021. I'm like, let's do like a ruler ceremony, like ruled, and then Rule the Jungle came about from that. And it's like, well, how do we don't want to do king or queen, like king of the jungle. Yeah, like that's what everybody's heard. And queen of the jungle, king and queen of the jungle, it just didn't sound right. So like what term could be kind of universal? And it was,
it's a call to action
ruler.
as well.
Yeah, ruler. It shows dominance, it's bold.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one, we've used it, and I have something in the works for when we win the Super Bowl this year.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So
dude. That's
Well,
It, it,
watching
it
those
it's
jungle movies really work, man.
Yeah, no, I love it. There's just so much you can do. Like you hear the word jungle and you're like green leaves, rain, tall trees. Like what's beyond that?
Yeah.
A ruin, a temple, a throne, concrete,
yeah.
like how can you get further than what everyone else knows? Like
I'm
open
gonna
people's mind.
I'm gonna alter an alternate solution to that type of development. Of course, like your route, the research, and the create, to get the juices going. But I know there were multiple years that we actually went into the clubhouse and we asked, well, not physically, but mentally, I guess, and visited with PR team and said, hey, because they are physically in the clubhouse or in the locker room, and we were just asking, give us some sound bites. What do the players say? What are they already saying? And we kind of made that list of things that they were already like kind of some were inside kind of I wouldn't say jokes, but just things that you would only know if you were on the team. And we ended up extracting some action words out of that, and ended up coming up with a few campaigns that were easily embraced because the players were already saying them. We didn't have to send a memo or print a sign that said like, "Hey, this is what it means." But no, man, what you were describing is like there's just so many ways, but it fit like it fits your demographic, it fits your brand, and not to mention it's a call to action, which is what you want. And I would say, dude, that's like in my mind. um, you could totally create that on your own, but what I would encourage as well for not just you but just anyone, like if you make that like a collaborative effort, like for instance maybe invite PR to one meeting and say, here's what we're thinking, give me some phrases.
Yeah.
All right, cool, we'll take that information, let's go to sales team. There's a couple of salesmen and women that know the beat of the fans. Hey, give me some catchphrases. And then maybe a third team, and then you guys kind of flesh it out. It ends up becoming like a collaborative, like we all came up with it, we all embrace it. It's just a very interesting way to kind of launch those campaigns
Yeah, I
versus.
mean, gets everyone to buy into it as
Yeah,
well.
oh absolutely. And it takes off some of the pressure, right? You're
Yeah.
like, hey, leave me alone. I know sometimes Ross is like, hey, we're in the middle of campaign creation, like I'm gonna be busy for a few weeks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, like collaborating with other departments. I mean, I have just always had a marketing mind.
that's great.
So like usually all these like crazy ideas come to mind as soon as we're talking about something. I mean, like for ticketing, like claim your throne.
Yeah,
Like
man.
yeah. And
So
then
good.
yeah, it's just I mean the rule of the
Incredible.
jungle just speaks for itself, but I mean you can play that's a play on word for
That's a multi-year campaign too.
yeah.
For
What-
sure.
So it started out as a campaign and now it's so concrete. I mean, I developed it onto the field wrap. It's on our stadium.
Oh, that's great, man.
I
Yeah.
told EA to put it in there.
It almost replaced Who Day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then our fans know Who Day. I mean, that's the chant that we go into right after Ruler of the Jungle. So it's just like,
Man, so you had to really, I mean, you had to learn that quick, right? Because I mean, that takes a year or two to get like, okay, this is my audience. Because it's different, right? Like so
Yeah.
different from, you're going from.
Bengals fans are crazy. I mean, it.
Sounds like that's following you through your career, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I haven't been offered steaks and sausages and boudin, but the Bengals fans are. I mean, they keep us going. They just love the team so much. The passion's there, and I mean that goes into like the content we make, the forever changing trends on social,
Right.
and just adapting to that again, learning to adapt. I mean, I learned all this stuff early in the career, is just being able to do that and giving the fans what they can consume. They're hungry. Give them what they want to eat, what they enjoy to eat, and that's the content. So it's
Yeah.
constantly changing.
Well, let me ask you, let's switch gears a little bit, but kind of along the same lines. You're talking a lot about like ideation, strategy. In For me personally, I feel like there's a higher equity on those type of thought leaders. Man, I'm probably gonna get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but versus like I'm trying to use a good term, but let's just call it like a desk pusher. It's like, hey, I come in, I fulfill these tickets, and I go home. And no offense to anyone who does that, that's like a valid job and career. But like there's a lot of pressure creatively to come up with these like slogans to, someone said earlier in the conference, like bringing that idea to life visually, like, what does that look like? How much time do I have to do that? So I was just wondering, like, as far as, value recognition, it's a term we use on the podcast, how do you create that for yourself? How do you create it for your department, where the organization is understanding that you guys are thought leaders, you guys are, strategists.
I mean, just continuing to speak up. I mean, use your voice. One of the biggest things I try to teach anyone that's working with me is, figure out how to talk. We're a
Dude,
lot of
so
people
good,
are
man.
forgetting how to talk
Wow.
And
and use
write
their
emails
voice.
too.
Yeah, and like no idea is a bad email or email. Yeah, no idea is a bad idea. Like
Sure.
speak up in meetings and discuss. I think people
So
tend to
great, man.
think when you say something that has to get done, like you could say it, it might not get done, or it might be brought back up 2 years later. But you're even a bad idea could inspire a better idea. So it gets people's wheels spinning, and in an organization that might not be as visual. I mean, all you have is your voice and to explain. Because I mean, if you're a really good creator, you should be able to describe something that really you could have someone close their eyes and they feel like they're there, and feeling it or touching it or experiencing it. So how do you do that in an organization that needs something in front of them to already done? Like you just gotta use your voice and
That's
put
so
them
good.
in the scene.
Yeah, no, I can't agree more, man. What you were saying about like it kind of being a lost language, almost literally.
Yeah.
Like for me, I think there's moments where you level up, and I think especially as a creative leader, you have to be able to communicate art and paint the picture. I've been in me personally multiple meetings where I've had an executive or maybe a partner say like, I'm sorry, I don't envision it. I have to see it. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay,
All the
that's
time I hear
yeah.
that.
I'm like, you hear where I'm coming from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's like, you could do a couple things, right? Like shame on you if you didn't bring a mock-up, right? Like if you know your audience, right? But if you can, I'm sure audience or listeners and have seen Mad Men where they bring in the creative director and he's like, man, I want to sell this thing. I want to pitch this thing. You know what I mean? Like that to me is it's the sell, right? You got to sell the art. You got to sell your idea. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it sounds like, man, I mean, you're so spot on, dude. That's something that I think it's so easy to, especially someone who likes to grind, which I value tremendously. Like, man, let me just cook, I always push them like, you need to go in and sell this. Like, this is your baby and you know it best. You just told me why you're so passionate about it at the desk. Say it in this meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's such good advice, dude.
So Dan, what are some difficult things you've had to manage in your career, be it growth, innovation, problems with a boss, leveling up skill wise?
Man, one of the things that just continues to be my challenge is honestly, uh, I end up with an organization with a small team.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned earlier, it does help us with our, building our skills more efficiently. It also just hinders, uh, taking time to
Expansion.
learn new stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or
and
even creative exploration. It takes away from that too.
yeah, and like we learned in the presentation earlier, it was like you forget about the time it takes to prepare things to show somebody what you're talking about,
Yeah.
to present it, and that stuff takes
Yes.
time. And with a small team, the people at the top are in the weeds. I mean, I'm in the weeds. I developing the brand for the Bengals, developing the style guide, approving internal, external logo usage, as well as developing social graphics. So I'm in the weeds
Hmm.
and I'm doing some of the tedious, detailed style guide work, as well as large scale projects for the stadium that
Preach, man.
just take time. I mean, I got to go measure my own stuff.
Yeah, bro.
But you're right
Yeah,
though.
I was hanging up banners on a ladder one time with my
The
buddy from Game Press.
I get that, man. I think we've all been through that.
Yeah, dude.
But you're definitely right about the upside is you just learn how to do everything and you learn how to
Yeah.
do it quick and you learn how to do it good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing I preach is like no project's too small either. So like
Absolutely
being at the
right.
top, that's not going to keep me from doing a ticketing graphic that is going on paid social or paid ads. Like nothing's too small. The one thing I also learned in Florida was, be the guy that's gonna, if there's nacho cheese on the bleachers, clean it off, no matter what your title is. Like,
I like
be
that.
first class.
Yeah.
I like that.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's a simple principle, but honestly, it's like a character. It's building character, and you know, not to like make some sort of segue into digital graphics, but like I'm very big on clean files. I'm like, dude, if you're gonna build it and you're gonna say you're a pro, or if you're gonna have someone charge you for it, like, dude, be organized. It's like if you ever hire an AC company, you go up there, there's like beer cans and there's trash, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, have some pride. Like, this is a place where I have to store things, I have to go up, and so when we build files, like that's honestly, I will send it back. I'm like, this needs to be organized. Do not send it to me like that. This has to, like, you have to leave it better than you found it, right? Like
Yep.
just simple principles, and
Yeah.
something like that, it just has that like integrity built into the craft. Like, respect the craft. It's not just whipping it together, a hot mess. And because I never forget, some of the best compliments I've had is like, oh man, I got your files, dude, perfect. Like, oh, I love the way you laid it all out. I was like, damn man, you never know. It's just, but also what I found is in the heat of things, when like you said earlier, Ross, they come around the corner, hey Ross, can you open up this for me? And it's like, imagine like going through 50 files, nothing's layered, nothing's labeled.
Layer
It's built
42, layer
RGB, but
32.
you need it for CMYK, and it's like they're not gonna understand that, man. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm very big on like the fundamental things of learning the shortcuts. Organize your layers, man. Like that says a lot about how you design, how you think. Like organized thoughts, versus chaos.
And there should be a mentality going into everything too. Like those things that you just explained are the small details, and that goes into a graphic too. Like you forget about the small details and everything, you're gonna mess up your graphic. You leave a little crop area showing, or
Oh,
the simple typos.
yeah.
And we've all done it, man. We want to forget about those little
Yeah, so like
mistakes.
those small things matter, and whether that's cleaning up your file a little bit, like it matters.
So we have a few more questions, and then we'll get to some hot seats. But one thing I wanted to ask, like, just because I feel like being on the podcast, I don't know, man, the audience is able to come into kind of your mind and how you do things. But, it sounds like you've had to go through some growing pains, break down some walls to get there. I was just kind of curious, like, what are some difficult things or maybe what's one difficult thing that you could recall, maybe a boss relationship or a skill you didn't have where you had to like just overcome?
Honestly, just young in my career, honestly thinking that I knew it all, thinking I was a big shot when I wasn't. And I mean, you're gonna run into those struggles, and you're gonna run into people that you don't agree with everywhere. That's just the nature of it. They say the grass is greener on the other side. It's not necessarily greener on the other side. It's just a different shade, So you're gonna run into the struggles with staff, and it's just coming to that understanding of being selfless and understanding that like it's not about you anymore. And I honestly, I'm 34, and I have a 2-year-old, and the moment I had a 2-year-old was really the moment that I put everything that benefited me and everything that I wanted aside, and it's for another life now.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife gets all the cookies, but at the same time, like my son will, he gets priority over what interests in life. Like
Yeah.
it's not about me, and that until you have a kid, you won't really understand that. But
Having
it's
kids really humbles you.
a perspective changer of like what's really important and what matters.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No,
man.
100%, man.
Shout out a person who's had a big impact on your career, and what did they teach you?
Man, I actually have one character that led to another character in college. So I came from community college. I have an associate's degree. So I'm currently doing the impossible, what some would say,
Oh
where I'm
man,
at.
so
I'm
that
in a-
means no one on this stage has a 4-year degree. That's amazing.
Wow. All right.
100%.
I feel much better
Hey,
now.
we're like a club.
I get anxiety and uncomfortable when I talk about schools. Everyone's like, "Yeah, go Texas,
My
go
guy,
Florida,"
you
but I'm like,
university.
community college. Yeah. So I had a professor. This was, gosh, 2009. I don't think creative teams were very popular. It wasn't trendy as it is now. Like
No, man, you spot
professional
on
teams were outsourcing.
for sure.
And I knew I wanted to do something in sports, so I was taking classes, and I had a professor that, I mean, we were mocking up the Brooklyn Bridge. We were doing, your basic 101s, and I asked him, like, hey, can I focus on more sports-related projects? Like, if I'm going to be investing the time in this class, I want it to be worth something in the end that I'm actually doing and that I actually have intentions to get to. So I asked him, and I'm like, hey, sports photography, like this is what I want to do with my career. And this guy was like, that's unreal. That is an unrealistic job.
Wow.
That's not out there.
Wow, dude.
And I was like just thrown back by this professor that's supposed to be lifting me up and pushing me forward. And I had this just aspiration to do something that was at the time not as trendy and not popular, but I knew I wanted to do it. So this dude told me no. And he's been one of the most influential people that
Wow. I mean, this was not an answer I was expecting.
Yeah,
but
no, and
it's so true. You use that negativity, but as a positive.
he's like the villain. That no matter where I'm at, I gotta continue to show him that yes, this is real, dude. I'm in the NFL.
And you just visualize this
Yeah.
guy when when you're like in a creative rut or something. You're like,
Yeah, dude. That's Scott's his name. Nothing against any other
and you'll
Scott,
never
but there's
forget
one
this
Scott
guy's
out there
name, what
that's
he
not
looks
good.
like.
Yeah. So
Dude, that's such a good answer to end on, man.
That's a great answer.
Dude.
yeah, I mean, use the people that doubt you as influence.
Yeah.
And
that's
like,
that creative, that's that athleticism mentality. Honestly, dude,
Yeah.
that one coach, that one guy that you couldn't beat. Like that's definitely that competitive, drive, dude.
yeah, prove them wrong every day, no matter where I'm at. I mean, I'm in the NFL, and I still feel like I gotta prove this dude wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little PTSD, but with going to school community, I met my really good friend Jacquel, and he's a musician. And with the doubt that this professor gave me, he could see that I was like doubting, hey, maybe this stuff isn't real, because I didn't have experience. I didn't, in a world where this wasn't, graphic teams and creative squads weren't necessarily like the norm.
Yeah.
Of course, I doubt myself a little bit, and I'd always thank my buddy Jock, because he pushed me to great levels and to follow the sports passion. And one day I was just like, dude, I thank you so much for like helping me understand. He quoted me with this. He's like, I didn't do anything, dude, besides put a mirror in front of you.
Wow.
And he's just like, he was humble in that moment. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I just let you look at yourself.
Wow.
And I mean, that stuck with me forever too.
That's good, man.
And it's just,
Jock.
Jacquel, yeah.
Love that, man. Yeah, and that's what it's all about, man. We're gonna literally run through some super fast questions, but that is not to again go back to Connect, but like this is day one. Like there's so many people I want to meet, and so many comments that I've taken away. Just like a comment like that, like he probably didn't even realize it was dropping knowledge on you.
Yeah, no.
That's so good, man. All right, guys. So this part of the podcast, we're gonna go fast. We just want to put you in the hot seat and find out what type of creative are you. All right, straight and to the point. Desk, is it organized or messy?
Messy.
Okay.
Without answering your own team, which team has the best uniform?
Pittsburgh Pirates.
Dang, no hesitation. All right. What's a gimmick or trope or something that needs to go away in sports?
I think we need to stop goating people. There's too many, like, you're the goat, you're the goat, you're the goat. Like,
This guy, dude.
yeah.
I love that. That's like a general answer.
That
but
drives me
yes.
nuts. Drives me nuts.
Yes.
Greatest of all time is one person.
All right, man. Besides like the Bengals official font, what's your go-to typeface?
Gosh, I really like Agency.
Agency's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know exactly.
Good font.
I know exactly
Yeah.
where you're from. It's kind of a little boxy.
Yeah. It works well with a lot.
Bengals are in the Super Bowl. What is your go-to pregame meal?
So I grab a cup of bacon on normal game days.
A cup.
I don't eat any of the food in the press box besides bacon. But put your bacon in a cup, and that's that meal right there. Yeah.
I love
Straight
that.
Yeah.
You're probably the
Bacon.
only one that's ever gonna answer that.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, man. I'm gonna outro us. Let's wrap, dude. Dan, thank you so much, man.
Thank y'all.
The room's filling up here. I appreciate you spending some time with us. Such good answers, man. That was a good journey.
I appreciate it.
Please follow Dan if you don't already. What's
Yeah, D Brown Pro. It's Twitter, Instagram. Try to keep it simple.
Well, guys, if there's something in this podcast and something that Dan said that resonates with you, just give us a follow, comment, subscribe. But I mean, these are the type of conversations that we want to have. And if there's a creative out there that we need to be talking to, send them our way. So thank you for joining us. Talk to you soon, and we got to get back to the conference.
Thanks,
Peace.
Dan.
Thank you.